Okay, it is time for true confession. I cannot draw. Now, listen, I've tried. I tried, but it feels like you give me a pencil and I can draw some doodles or I can draw circles maybe, or a stick figure kind of thing. But I feel like I actually draw with my paint. So if I can get the parameters of something down, then I feel like I can kind of figure it out with the paint. I draw with my paint, essentially, I guess. So it's not the same though as someone who sketches something out. I think partly I'm too a little bit impatient, and I don't some of the master painters who do realistic paintings, they grid or even drawings with like pencils and things like that. They grid them out. There's all these technical ways to get a face proportionate and all that. Well, I just like to bypass all that and get straight to the good stuff, which is painting and, like getting things messy. So if you're kind of like me and you're kind of put off by a lot of the technical pieces to it, although you do need that, it's very important and it is a learnable skill. And I will say along the way, I have learned proportions in certain things, but I still go to the, I still don't, grid my paintings out or anything like that, because I kind of want things to be a little bit abstracted, even my figures and my portraits and things like that. I don't want them perfect. And I certainly do not want to replicate my reference photo, because that's not the look I'm going for. But I am wanting to use a reference photo so that every image that I create on a portrait or a figure isn't looking the same. So if you use a reference photo, the odds of everything you draw looking the same goes down. So I kind of like having, my own style, but then within that, different images will emerge if I use a reference photo for this type of thing. So anyway, I'm going to give you 4 ways to, lack of a better word, render an image so that you can get started with the fun part, in my opinion, which is the painting. So I'm going to show you how to get, the proportions down in some very fast and very easy ways. And then you'll be on your way, painting and at least getting started. And I think that to me is always, that's the biggest goal, is just to get started, because starting is so hard. And if we have to jump over all these hurdles in terms of having things look perfect, then I think it really is very limiting for most of us. Some people love that. And I kudos, because it's amazing and can be a very tedious process. But for the rest of us who want to jump in and get started, you might want to try one of these 4 tips and see if it helps you get started with making some portraits of, it could be people, it could be animal, you could use anything, so anyway, I hope you get started. And if you do use one of these techniques, let me know. They are not, I just wanted to give you a quick, before we get started, show you the materials that I used in this video. I used this mixed media 9x12 art journal. You could use anything you have. I also used a craft grocery store bag. I used a large piece of book paper that I happen to have from an old dictionary. I used a piece of carbon paper. I found a reference photo and printed it off from Pinterest. I used a pair of scissors, a paintbrush, a pencil, some gesso to prime my pages. And typically, like I think I mentioned in the video, I don't always use the gesso. I would probably just work straight onto a page that had a lot of marks, but for the sake of paint and layers. But for the sake of this example, I really felt like it was important to put the white gesso on so that you could actually see what I was doing. And then the other thing I used was matte medium. So for pretty simple supplies today, and I hope you have fun. For those of you who are like me, who feel like you can't draw, I hope this gives you a starting place, a point to begin. The first way I'm going to show you how to get an image down, I'm going to use my art journal. And because I never start on typically I don't start on a white page. For today's example, I have gessoed over the top of this page with white gesso. in order to better show you the example of what I'm doing. Typically, I would have just worked on the colored paper that I already had down and the paint that I already had down. So all of the examples today, I'm going to use this same reference photo of her that I printed out in black and white. I prefer to work in black and white. I wanted a, kind of a larger face because we are just working on 9x12. Our journal is 9x12, and the other papers that I'm going to use are about the same size. So today, for this first one, I'm going to use your traditional old-fashioned carbon paper and show you how you can get the basic shape down to help you get started actually painting faces. And it will help with proportion. And it's not going to look, for me, my goal isn't for it to look exactly like this photo, but it's to get the proportions so that when I want to make some alterations within that I have I guess the correct proportions is the best way to say it. So when I was learning, okay, so I finished pretty much the outline of what I'm interested in getting the information. So let's see how it transferred across. Now, it is fairly light, but I think I was doing that for a reason, because it can get so dark that, I don't know, it gives you too much information. This is the problem. So like I would probably, put her eye in there a little bit more so you can see it. But it does, you can see it gives you the mouth, the nose, and the eyes, which to me are the most critical for the proportions. And then sometimes the neck is also a problem, particularly in this person who is, she's at an angle. And so this shoulder is, foreshortened, you don't see it as much. And then this shoulder over here is larger because of that. And then she's got all this hair that is, is kind of amazing and fun to work with. So, okay, for this second example, I'm going to show you a way that I have used quite a bit, because I often have not had carbon paper at my disposal. And I'm sure a lot of you don't either. I, have ultimately bought some, but early on, I use this technique. So I'm going to show you here in just a second. It just takes a pencil and your reference photo. And basically all we're going to do is we're going to use our pencil to color in, to fill in the back. And I'll show you that in a second. And I will fast forward that because that is obviously very tedious. But today, for this one, I'm just using a craft grocery bag that I have put, Trader Joe's bag that I have put a coat of white gesso on. Okay, and that is about all I'm going to do on that one. And you can see, hopefully you can see this, it's fairly light, but I've got mostly the parts that I wanted, which were the eyes, nose, and the mouth. I also have the neck and the shoulder proportions. For this example, I have pulled a big piece of book paper out I have this oversized large dictionary, which is amazing. And I've just put white gesso on it, just to use different substrates to kind of give you an example. What I'm going to do is cut her out and collage her down onto this piece of paper. And what I've found is, and I've done this a lot, is painting over and I'm using the one that has the pencil marks because it's not going to matter because I'll just paint over it. But painting over something that's already down is a great way to not only learn the proportions, but to kind of create your own version of whatever your image is. So I'm okay, so now your photo is on, you're ready to go, you can paint over it and make it your own. It's that fast, it's that easy. For the last way that I often use my reference photo directly on to capture the proportions is by, this actually might seem kind of silly to some of you, but I lay it on, and I'm working in my art journal again with white gesso on top of some painted surface, but I lay my my reference image on top of the page, and then I just go underneath. Okay, yeah, it seems silly, but it is super helpful, and it has really helped me to figure out proportions. So separate from doing, there's other ways you can do it. You can draw lines and do thirds and all that, and that's great. But for me, sometimes I have just wanted to kind of get it down without being so exact and precise. So this is one way that I do it. So I gently lift up my paper that I have down, and I'm not really looking, but I'm kind of like using my pencil tip underneath. I think you can see that. Like, okay, the eye is right about here. The other eye is right about here. The eyebrows there. The other eyebrows there. The nose here and the nose here. I'm trying to just capture the darkest parts. The middle of the mouth there, and the bottom of the lip there. So then I might pull it around and get just the basic shape of the face. Now you might be saying, well, why wouldn't you just use your carbon paper or use your, the other way I showed you, which is with using the, just the pencil to go around. I have just found that this just gives me a glimpse into the reference photo. It does not give me as many specifics. So I'll do a little bit of her hair, but a lot of times I don't actually even include the hair because I'm mostly interested in the shape of the face, the proportions, the neck maybe, and the slightly of the body. So, so what you end up with is something like this, which is very rough and very not, you wouldn't look at this reference photo and get this from this person. So, and that's kind of my point when I'm making art is, yes, I like using a reference photo so that I can see there's some dark shadows here, particularly if there's dramatic lighting, which I really like. You can use that for your lights and darks, and that's especially what I like to do. This gives me a rough image of the face, of a face. Then from here, I can go and turn this into whatever I want. I can paint over it. But it gives me a place to start if I'm uncertain and if I'm unable to draw, like I feel like I am mostly unable to draw. Although the more I have done these kind of things, the better I am at like taking this and doing the sketches. And in some of my other videos, I have shown like the 3-minute sketch. And, obviously those aren't perfect and they don't even totally replicate the face here. But anyway, this is just some ways to get started, particularly if you're like me and you feel like you can't draw. It's a great jumping off point for actually drawing. This would be a simple way to get started because I feel like often the things that hold us back are perfection, fear of, not having any sense of how to start, where to begin, and not wanting to necessarily copy somebody else, but we do get caught up in copying other people and doing it the way that they do it instead of finding our own way. So from this reference photo here, I may not paint her, but I'm going to paint a person that based off of this image in my own way. So anyway, enough babbling for now. And I hope you have fun, and I hope that you try one of these, particularly if you've been stuck in and can't figure out how to get started.